Hello, hello, and welcome. My name is Jay, and I am here on behalf of StriveScan, and we are super excited to have you all compiling into this amazing webinar. We have got some great content for you. Again, my name is Jay. I am with StriveScan, and welcome to the Western Association for College Admission and Counseling Virtual College Fair. Tonight's panel is sure to be a great discussion, but I have a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. So as you're all coming in, you should see a Q&A button at the top or bottom of your screen. This is where you can type questions to our presenters at any time, and they should be able to do that and respond to your questions. Your camera, your microphone are off, so don't worry, you can see and hear us, but we cannot see and hear you. There are multiple sessions happening later this evening as well, so if you have a great time learning about this specific topic and want to learn about some great schools that are part of WACAC, we'd love for you to join those sessions. And this is being recorded. So within about 1 week, if you want to follow back up from all this great information or your question wasn't answered, do not worry. This information will be available within 1 week at strivescan.com/WACAC. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to our presenters here. Come on up.
Hey everybody, I'm glad you could join us today. My name is Dewey Wilmot. I'm a college counselor in San Jose, California. In a minute, we're going to show a really informative video about the personal essay. And then after that, we'll have roughly 15 minutes to answer Q&A questions live. I'd like to pass the ball over to Brianne.
Hello, I am Brianne Boyle. I am also an independent college counselor here, but I'm based in Orange County, so the south of the state. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and I am also the incoming president of the Western Association College Admission Counseling, which is a little bit of a mouthful, but you can see the logo on a bunch of our shirts. So, and I will pass it off to Jenny.
Hello, good to connect with y'all virtually this way. My name is Jenny Uribe. I'm a college counselor at a high school in San Jose. I mostly serve low-income first-gen students and excited to talk to you all about college essays. Good to see y'all.
All right, great. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to watch this video.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the WACAC College Fair session for how to approach your personal statement. My name is Julio Mata, and I am one of the directors of college counseling at Francis Parker School in San Diego, California, and I will be one of your presenters for the session today. My co-presenters will introduce themselves later on in this session, but for now, let's go ahead and get started. So when we're talking about the college essay, I think the first question we always have to start with is, why is this a thing? Why are colleges making you write essays about yourself? And as you see on the slide, this essay really has a very special job throughout your application process. Basically, it allows you to bring more of yourself into your application. And so that way you're not just more than a set of numbers, a GPA and test score, that you are so much more than that. And as part of this, it also gives you an opportunity to provide context, to provide stories of your background, stories of your experience in your voice to help inform what your high school experience has been like to college admission counselors who are reviewing your application. This also allows your personality to come through, allows you to show a little bit more of your sense of humor or your way of seeing things, your perspective on certain issues, the beliefs and values that you hold dear to you and who make you part of who you are. All of this is essential to being able to allow college admission counselors to be able to really provide the best review of your application as much as possible. So oftentimes when I'm working with students as they're writing their personal statements or college essays, I find that there are several misconceptions that come up. And so I'd like to address a couple of them right now, just in case some of you are thinking about these very same things right now as you're approaching your college essay or thinking about it. First, the first point you see there, I don't have to summarize my entire life into 650 words or 500 words or however many words you're allowed to write for this essay. The fact of the matter is, you're not. No college is expecting you to summarize all 16, 17, 18 years of your life into any amount of words because that's right near impossible. So don't try to do that. Instead, focus on one specific story, one specific experience, and let that be a snapshot of your life to provide some context into some of your experience growing up or some of your lived experiences so far in school. So like that point says, don't tell them everything, Tell them something about yourself. Next, there's this big misconception that you're supposed to have this really emotional story as part of your college essay. And the fact of the matter is, you don't. That is not an expectation in the slightest. If you happen to have a story that is emotional, that is really difficult to share it if you feel that it's important for college admission reps to understand your lived experience in high school, not just because you have this sad story. That doesn't do anything other than make the reader sad when they're reading it, right? Or make them feel something emotional, some kind of emotional connection. But the most important thing is, does this story share something, shed some light on your experience as a high school student? Then you want to share that. So if you don't have a story like this, please don't take a story that's not a sad or emotional story and make it sad. So don't catastrophize. Make sure that you're focusing on showcasing your specific values and experiences that you've lived, because that's good enough. That's enough for colleges to get to know you and who you are. Additionally, another big misconception is that oftentimes students say, oh, those shorter essays that are like 150 words, 200 words, I'll just put those off until the last minute. I can pound those out in no time. When, quite honestly, some of those shorter essays tend to be some of the hardest essays to write, because it requires you to use those few words that you have really, really efficiently. So make sure you prioritize those shorter supplemental essays, just as much as you are this standard Common App essay or general personal statement that you have to write for some colleges. And finally, so there's a lot of misconceptions that you can write this essay in the very same way that you would write an academic paper for school. And the fact of the matter is, this is very different style of writing. As you see, as we continue with the presentation, this isn't supposed to be a 5-paragraph essay with an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. You're not limited to that kind of structure. You're open to write however you want to. At the same time, this isn't a personal journal or an academic essay. So it's kind of something in between. So it's this fine line that you'll have to navigate with that. And you'll see some more examples as we continue with the presentation. Now, it's also very likely that you're thinking about this Common App, this personal statement, and not really sure what you're expected to write. You probably heard some ideas, some rumors, if you've heard some friends who are seniors who've written these essays, just what they're asking for. So we thought it would be really good for you to see just a couple of examples of some typical college essay prompts that you'll be facing coming up. So we decided to highlight 3 different types. We have the common application prompt, we have a University of California application prompt, and then also a couple supplemental prompts from different universities. So if you look at the question that's being asked in the common application prompt, you have to kind of read between the lines here and see what they're actually asking you to write about. It says, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? If you noticed, it's asking you to do 3 things, not just 1. A lot of students focus on the recounting a time, telling a story, and leave very little space and time dedicated to the final 2 parts, which is how did that story affect you? How did that experience affect you? And what did you learn from it? Those should be the parts that make up the majority of your writing, as opposed to the first part of the prompt, which is telling a story. With the supplemental essays, you also see 3 different prompts, and they're very, very different. The one that you see that's going to be most common is some variation of briefly describe how you learned about this institution, or tell us why you want to apply here, or why you think you're a good fit at this school. And those are typically shorter essays that require a lot of time and thinking for you to be able to say how exactly you feel you are a good match for that institution. Another one that's kind of unique, some other unique ones that can kind of, again, run the gamut as to what supplemental essays look like. From the University of Richmond, you have a prompt that says, tell us about spiders. And they ask that question because their mascot is the spiders. But are they asking you to write about athletics, school spirit, about actual spiders? We don't know. That's for you that's a choice that you get to make. And then Wake Forest also asks the question, give us your top 10 list. That's it. You get to make a top 10 list of anything that you want to rank from 1 to 10. So it's really open-ended. It's a chance for you to showcase your personality, to showcase your interests in a very unique way based on those essay prompts. And then finally, we have the University of California prompts, just one example of their personal insight questions you see below. And the University of California questions are designed to be basically a written interview. So you're expected to be much more direct with your answers than with other prompts where you're telling a story, kind of setting up a narrative. Just kind of get to the point, answer the question specifically like you see it listed.
Hello, my name is Jenny Uribe. I am a college counselor at Cristo Rey San Jose Jesuit High School. And students oftentimes ask, what do I even write in my college essay? Where do I even start? I have no idea what I even want to include. And it's always important to start with putting yourself in the shoes of the reader, right? The person that's going to be reading through your entire application and making a decision on whether or not to offer admissions. By the time they get to your college essay, they've oftentimes already read through your transcript. They understand your GPA, the type of AP courses that you may have taken, honors, IB. They see your grades and they understand a little bit more about your high school. So they're getting an understanding of your academic record. So you'll notice here in this brainstorm web that your academic record is kind of pulled to the side. The gray circles around it are filled in because that's kind of already taken care of by the time they get to your essay. So your essay is really an opportunity to share more about yourself beyond your academic record, right? Beyond your grades and beyond the rigor and the context of your high school. It's an opportunity to kind of share more about yourself through these 5 buckets. So what are your values and personal qualities, your ability to overcome challenges, talents and accomplishments, your identity, and of course, your dreams and aspirations. How do we even start, when you think about your life and trying to fit it into these different categories, it can be a little challenging. So start with reflection. Start with giving yourself the time to reflect on the significant experiences that have happened in your life that have shaped you to be who you are today. I'm going to return to this web, but first I'd like to share with you 3 different tools to help guide your reflection. So at the top here, you'll see a tree. The tree is a great tool if you are the type of student who already takes the initiative in your life to reflect. You're already in practice of doing that. You're a bit more of an abstract thinker. Then the tree is a great fit for you. The roots represent significant experiences. The trunk represents support and values, and the leaves represent your dreams. And so you can just kind of do a brain dump and think about all of these significant things in your life and kind of put it on paper, right? If you're more of like a creative student, someone who is a bit more artistic, then maybe the river of life is a better reflection tool for you. Blank piece of paper and really drawing out your life through the representation of a river. So maybe there's a tumultuous time in your life and you want to express that through a rushing river. Maybe you're hoping for your future to be a bit more calm, so you express that through a calm stream through the river, right? You can incorporate pictures and different symbols to document, your whole life through the representation of a river. Another piece is the lifeline. So drawing a line across a piece of paper, marking born, current, and future, and talking through and really reflecting on those significant experiences. Maybe you're more of a logical thinker, sequential thinker. That would be a great fit for you. Once you've identified the best tool to guide your reflection, you want to think about these guiding questions here. What are those significant experiences that have shaped you to be who you are today? Who's been there for you as you've pursued your goals? What do you value most that's helped you keep focused on your goals? And what are your dreams, right? Giving yourself this time to just openly reflect and kind of do a huge, just pouring yourself onto a piece of paper without this framework of I need to put this into my college essay, like just really writing down everything that's been so significant to you is a great starting place, because then you can actually use the brainstorm tool, the brainstorm web, to pull information from your reflection into these different categories. So maybe being an older sibling and being the first to go off to college is something that you're really proud of. It's an accomplishment. Maybe it's something that you are just so excited that you've been able to make happen. Maybe it's more of overcoming a challenge, having younger siblings, having to take care of and making sure that their academics are on track while your academics are on track too. Maybe that's it actually for you more of a challenge that you had to overcome. So really no right or wrong way of how to use this brainstorm web, but it's really for you to kind of categorize all the significant experiences that you've taken the time to reflect on and organizing it. Once you've organized all of the different experiences that you've had in your life, then it's helpful to start creating an outline. So for each significant experience, so for example, being the older sibling, you want to ask yourself, what happened? What did you learn? And why does this matter, right? Students often ask, am I done with my essay? Is this what's going to get me admitted? Is this a good enough essay? Is there anything missing? Is there anything I should add? And to determine whether or not you have all the content there, asking these 3 questions is a really great place to kind of reassure yourself that you're there. So if you're able to make sure that you answer the question of what happened, that should really just be a third of the essay of what happened, right? 2/3 of your essay should really be about what you learned and why does this matter, right? And once you're able to reflect on the experiences that you've had on your life, organize them into a brainstorm web, and create an outline through those 3 questions, then you've actually finished the very first phase of developing your essay. And you're ready to actually now open up a document and start drafting your essay. It's great to get feedback, not from like 20 different individuals, because that would be way too many different perspectives and opinions, but like 1 or 2 folks who you know well and know you well, and will be direct in giving you feedback, right? And anticipate to write multiple drafts. You're not going to get this in the first version. So, and then the very last phase is grammar and word count, right? Once you've written a few revisions to your essay, you're ready to then talk about your grammar and word count. Oftentimes students want to start with word count, but that's actually the last thing that you want to do.
Hello, my name is Brianne Boyle, and I'm a master counselor with CollegeWise. What that means is that I work with students to help them find good colleges that fit them and to get their applications turned in on time, which includes helping them with their college essays, which I think for the most part, most of my students that I've worked with, and I've worked with hundreds of them, the essay is the thing that makes them the most stressed out. So let's talk about it. I have a couple tips for you. This first tip is just be honest. Just be honest about who you are. Colleges want to know who you are as a person, what makes you tick, what are the things that you're excited about, and they don't want to see you just trying to impress them. When you try to impress them in your essays, you just sound like everybody else. You sound like everybody else because you're just saying the same stories. You'll see that there's a theme throughout all of my tips where they all kind of mash together to give you the right roadmap for what you're writing in your essays. So just be honest with yourself. They don't need to see, every impressive thing that you've done. They just need to see the things that you're excited to share with them. Adults have a really hard time with this tip. So parents always want you to basically do a written version of a PowerPoint of all of your best accomplishments. But when you do that, you just sound like somebody else. You sound like a robot. You don't sound like who you are. So don't try to impress them by just putting in your top most amazing things. They're going to see that. It'll be in your application. It's usually the opposite of what you've been told to do, that you've been told to be impressive for colleges for the last couple of years, right? In middle school and high school. But I'm telling you that in the essay, that's not the place to do that. So make your goal to just be yourself when you're writing. Tip number 2, own your story. Make this story your story. Make it be something that somebody else can't do. or talk about. So listen, I know that a lot of high school students are doing basically the same stuff. You're playing sports, you're involved in clubs, you're doing, your dance, you're doing your community service, you're hanging out with friends, you have family responsibilities. For the most part, most teenagers' lives are very similar. So they get that everybody's going to have essays that might be similar. If you want to write about your sport and your soccer team, that's totally okay. It doesn't mean that you have to come up with the most amazing different essay topic from other people. It just means that when you write about your essay topic, it should be your own. So go ahead, write about the soccer team. There will be hundreds of other soccer essays. That's okay. You can own your story in a couple of ways. Add more detail. Tell us about the traditions you have on your team, or your favorite part of doing soccer, or that one thing that happened in a game that was funny, or the reason why you picked up soccer, or something that makes it specifically you, something that somebody else could write about when they're writing about their soccer team. So add that detail. If you're having a hard time adding that detail for the topic that you've picked, that might not be your topic, and maybe you need to pick a different one. So just ask yourself, could anybody else be telling this story? And if they can, think of that bullet point above that. Add more detail or pick a different one. And essay tip number 3, don't repeat information. Of course, they're going to see that you did soccer on your application and your list of activities, but like we said before, you can tell them new stories in your essay. So you can do this in a couple of ways. Either share new information that's not on the application, right? So even if you're sharing about something that you've already done. So if you're going to talk about your dance that you're super passionate about, or playing violin that you've done for years, that's totally fine. It'll be on your application, but share a completely new thing that they won't know about. Maybe talk about what inspired you, to start playing violin, or the things that make it something that you're passionate about. Or maybe that you played violin and did a concert that was impromptu in the park for someone. Just some little nugget that they're not going to get from your list of application items. So just your activities and things that they're going to see, try to make it a little bit different. Or pick a story that's not on the application at all. So for example, I've had some students who've written about totally different things. I had a student who wrote about his passion for fishing and growing up and learning how to fish with his dad. And we learned all about who he was, his growth with his relationship with his dad, things that he loved to do that weren't just on his application. And one of my favorite essays of all time that I talk about all the time is my student who wrote an entire essay about macaroni and cheese. And I know that sounds absurd, but the essay really told us who she was. We learned her passion for cooking that she discovered while making macaroni and cheese, her interest in doing things with her family, and a little bit of her humor. And none of those things were on the application. I've also had students who've told stories about, things that are on the application, but they've just added that detail, and it's something that really can set them apart. So my last tip for you is sound like yourself. This isn't an academic essay. You can start a sentence with I. This is not something that you're going to read again. Your application essays are going to be read by admissions folks. They're going to be read by your family maybe after you submit it, and that's pretty much it. So don't worry about being so formal. This is something where, of course, you should have good grammar and make sure someone checks it to, catch typos and things, of course. But you can be casual and you can be yourself and use your own voice. So ask yourself this, would you say it like this if you were talking to your favorite teacher? And I pick favorite teacher because it should not be your bestie, because with your bestie, you're going to do that next bullet point, which you might use slang or text speak or, be a little too casual. But, remember your age on the formality level here. You're a teenager. It's totally okay to sound like one. Just make sure that you're writing it in a respectful manner and you should be fine. No thesaurus allowed. If it's not a word you would use in normal conversation, then it's going to look really obvious and it's not going to sound like your authentic self. So good luck with your essays. They're going to be great. If you just remember these tips you've learned today, I'm sure you'll have an awesome essay.
Fabulous. Thanks, Brianne, for those informative slides. Hi, everyone. My name is Dewey Wilmot. I'm a college counselor in San Jose, California, and a proud member of the Western Association for College Admissions Counseling. I want to thank you all again for attending today's college fair, and in particular, attending this awesome session on the personal statement. So we've learned a lot of great things today, and we're shortly going to start a Q&A session with everyone still in the room here. I did want to point out to everyone a few resources from my friend Ethan Sawyer, also known as the College Essay Guy. You can see some links on the screen here, and these are just a few of the many, many resources Ethan makes available to students, not only in California and Nevada, but around the world. So let me point these out to you quickly. The first URL is an application hub, and there's all sorts of information on here about the personal statement as well as other aspects of the college admissions process. Second link is for a free college essay feedback through Ethan's program called Matchlighters. So through this program, students apply to be connected with a college counselor like myself, who is going to provide up to 6 hours of free feedback and counseling on your essays and personal statement. There is a short application to complete to verify eligibility, but I encourage you to check it out if this sounds like something that might benefit you. There are hundreds of counselors helping students all over the world. The last link is for a page specifically devoted to essay resources. And not only are there guides for the personal statement like we've been discussing today, but there's also guides for things like the UC personal insight questions, which are the UC college essays, for individual college supplemental essays, which a lot of the private schools and some of the out-of-state public schools have supplemental essays. So that last URL is a great resource for that. So I want to encourage everybody to take advantage of Ethan's generosity. And we will be wrapping up the recording right now and opening up for a Q&A. So thanks again for paying attention, and we look forward to talking to you live. Great. Okay, everybody. I know people have been asking some Q&As as this has been happening, but the floor is open. We have quite a few people attending, and Jenny and myself and Brianne are happy to answer questions right now. If you haven't already, open up your Q&A box. A couple that have already been asked, I'll just run through them. Jesse asked if you don't need a, we're advising you don't need to talk about a dramatic event. How would we know if event is too small to write about? Really, kind of anything goes. I was just listening to a session today from a highly selective school about essays, and they said that when you talk about something that maybe is overly dramatized, they just don't feel it's very authentic, and they really just want to see what's important to you. So kind of nothing's too small. If it's important to you, it can be a really interesting essay. We had Zoe asked about when you're submitting essays to the UCs, if you're just doing the UC personal insight questions, aka the PIQs, or if you're also submitting the Common App personal essay. The quick answer to that is you're only submitting the UC PIQs. There are no other supplemental essays involved with the UCs. There is an additional information box for other information that you want to provide, but you're not submitting the long 650-word essay.
We had a couple of other questions come in, and actually just bouncing off of what you were just saying, Dewey, one of the questions that came in is, what is Common App or PIQ? Which is a fair question. We're probably using a lot of technology, but your Common App is your common application. It is the action. Most colleges at this point, the UC state system, are on the Common Application. It's a very large number. You can actually go to commonapp.org and look up the list of members, but it's one application that you would fill out. So you would do your activities and your classes and all of that stuff in one place. And then you can submit it to multiple schools. So we say your essay, we're meaning the main essay, be your personal statement that would go in the Common App that you would send to many schools, knowing that, of course, there are supplemental essays that lots of those schools will ask you in addition to that, that will be specific to them. But that would be your main one. And then the PIQ are just the essays for the use. So your personal interest questions, but those are the ones that they're going to ask you. There's 8 of them. You choose 4. They're about 350 words each, and they're pretty specific. So often you might be able to use the same topic for your Common App and one of the PIQs on the UCs, but sometimes they don't overlap quite in the right way. So that's just to give a little bit more context around that. Let's see, I have here. I can start out from the top maybe and lob them out there to you guys. So we had a question of, do you have any writing techniques you recommend? I know the session was talking about some of those in general, but do you guys have any other maybe little tidbits or tips that you would throw out there?
Jenny, for those that missed the recording, you're going to be able to come back and see it. Jenny had a great set of sequences of writing strategies, which was to start with a brainstorm web, and then with several versions of that, like a stream or a tree, and really generate ideas, and then go to an outline, and then go to the actual drafting. And you want to add to that, Jenny?
Yeah, I think it also addresses the other question about, is it totally normal to be confused about where to even start or even what to share about myself, right? And totally normal. And I think everyone kind of starts in that place too. But I think carving out the time to really reflect on those significant experiences that you've had so far, and to not get into the web of like trying to compare yourself to others or compare yourself to even who you think you should be by now, but really to value the experiences that you have had, and reflect on how they have shaped you to be who you are today. That will pay off in so many ways, because oftentimes what you pull from that, oftentimes it's like 3 to 4 significant experiences that are meaningful to you. You could share about those same 3 to 4 experiences within your UC PIQs, within your Common App, and it can be and within your CSU application as well. So really first carving out the time to identify those 3 to 4 things that you want to make sure folks know about you, colleges know about you, I think will pay off and make the process a little bit smoother than kind of just starting off with the blinking cursor on a Word document. So really taking that time to reflect, I think, would be super helpful. And those tools referenced in the presentation are really great for all kinds of folks, whether you're used to reflecting on your own or more of a logical, sequential thinker. I feel like you'll find a tool there that will be a good fit for you.
We have answers here. I marked a bunch of them as answering live. Let's see. So one of them is, what if you have a good GPA, but if your essay is not good, would you to be accepted? And I'm sure you guys might have answers to that. Simple answer is, yep. Absolutely. Admissions doesn't hinge on one thing. They're never going to say, we love everything about this, but we wish they told us about a different story, or we loved everything about this student, but they didn't take one more AP class. Like, admissions isn't that specific. It really is holistic. They're looking at all the pieces of you. So, when you say your essay is not good, that might be something you feel, but that doesn't mean that an admissions person doesn't love reading about that story about you or learning that thing about you. So don't feel like there's any one piece that's going to, negate another piece. If anybody else has answers to that, we can happily tell them.
Yeah, I would just add to that, Brianne, that the group of schools, everybody that's highly selective, the essay will be very important. So I think Brianne's advice applies to 99.5% of the colleges out there, but that 0.5% that are highly selective, a good GPA alone is not going to cut it. And I would say the UC is in that category. So yes, for these schools, the essay is extremely important, which means, you know, you want to put your best effort into it. You want to spend time on it. You do not want to leave it to the last minute and just write something quickly at the end. But most schools out there are not highly selective. So there are a lot of questions here. I know someone asked a great question, like, you know, is it normal to feel like you don't know where to start? And the very easy answer to that is yes, absolutely. Like, starting your essays is hands down the hardest part of this. And you just want to start somewhere. And you guys are in this webinar right now. It's only April. You're starting early. So if you start early and put effort into it, from here forward, you're going to have great essays by the time they're due in late October, November, which is when this stuff starts coming due. So bottom line is you start somewhere, and normally like almost everybody kind of starts getting the hang of it and starts getting good at it. But it's totally normal to feel like you don't know what you're doing. So just keep at it.
There are lots of questions. We started slow and now there's so many. I don't know if we'll be able to get all of them live. There's a couple I think I can sort of fast fire answer. Someone asked, if we talk about one thing in one prompt, would it be okay to mention that thing in another prompt? The short answer is most of the time I have students not do that, only because it's too easy to just be repetitive. But generally, yes, it's okay as long as you're giving new information, or it's addressing a specific, question where it makes sense to use that same example. So I would say it's generally fine. Just make sure you're not actually copying and pasting or repeating the same essay into another prompt, especially if it's for the same school. If it's a different school, very much so. You can absolutely reuse stories. And I would say, do that and be efficient about it. And then one pretty early on was, would mentioning an illness that derailed high school plans be too dramatic? So I think we touched on topics that are off, not a good idea, but no, absolutely not. In fact, I would argue that if that's something that gives context to your application and explains maybe a change in grades or how you weren't able to do as many activities or something that semester or that year, that absolutely would be really great information for an admissions person to have. So I'll pass it on to my co-presenter if there's other questions we want to keep going through or add to that.
And Brianne, to build off of the question around, can you talk about the same topic within one prompt and the other? Sometimes it kind of reminds me of a situation that pops up sometimes is, the activity sections, you're pretty limited to how much you could share. And so but then maybe that one activity was a real significant, meaningful thing that you did in high school that you want to elaborate on. You can definitely mention it in activities, but then elaborate it a little bit more, especially in your PIQs, but in your essays and supplementals as well. So you can be strategic about where and how you talk about things within your whole application. Please don't feel like you have to fit everything into your essay.
Let's see. Go for it, Dewey.
Couple questions people are asking. Chloe had a great question. Can issues such as race, gender be mentioned or even be a big part of these essays? Should the experiences not mention too much about your personal identity? This is a really important issue in our country right now. These are absolutely okay topics, everybody. The key is, and what Chloe asked, should the experiences not mention too much about your personal identity? You really want your essay to be about your personal identity. You want to avoid being vulgar. You want to avoid being too critical necessarily of others, but be positive about who you are. If you have certain feelings about your identity in terms of race and gender, like be loud and proud is what I tell my students. Like, and if school doesn't want you because of that, you don't want to be at that school necessarily, because this is about fit. So I encourage everybody to be, proud of who you are, talk about it, but be respectful, like Brianne said, in like the tone you should take. But those are absolutely very appropriate things to talk about for sure. Michael asked if you don't have much extra activities, will it affect me getting rejected into UCs? I mean, you want to highlight what you are doing, Michael. If you're not doing, if you have free time in your life and you can fill it with things, by all means do it. But, make sure you talk about what you are doing. And there's no like one formula for being admitted. The formula is to put it out there, like let them know what you're doing. Don't not put something in there that you're doing, and talk about what you're doing. Be specific, be personal.
And to also add that, colleges know that you go to class every day and that you attend school, but they don't know anything else beyond that. So your activity section is really that opportunity to inform them of what else do you do beyond taking classes, because they'll see that in your transcript. So you can think of it in the traditional sense of like, I'm the president of X club on campus. It's a very traditional way of thinking of it. But you could also think about like, what is it that you do outside of the classroom? And it can be hobbies that you participate in, because it'll help the colleges learn more about who you are beyond an academic student. So think broadly about that section.
Yes, and we have just a couple, so I don't know to everyone here, but I'm trying. I think we're answers to some of these too. So some folks that we aren't answering live would get you answers in the Q&A as well. So, let's see. So a question from Rebecca: how do we differentiate our essays from other people's and make it interesting? I jumped on that because I talked a lot about that in the part where I was in the video. Go back and watch the video link that StriveScan will have to see that. And everybody else talked about the different ways you can kind of tell your story. And I promise you, if you're telling your story and it's unique to you, and you use the tips of like planning out, your storyboard, or making sure that you're adding details and things, that's how it will differentiate. Colleges are totally understanding of the fact that they will be reading a lot of essays about volunteer work and sports and family life and those things, because you're all humans of a certain age applying to college. So they get it, right? You have very similar lives in a lot of ways. So differentiate it by really showing who you are and your passions and they kind of get to see these little highlights of that makes you a little bit unique. Let's see. We have, this one, does the essay have to be an experience you had while in high school? That's a very easy answer. Nope. You can talk about any time in your life. And I've had many students who've done that, who've touched on, family traditions or things that started when they were kids, or experiences that, they had when they were kids, and reflecting on that. So.
Someone asked about whether the essay should include something about your major. And I oftentimes want to remind students that you are applying to a learning institution. So just as if you were applying to a job, you want to highlight parts of you that will get that job, right? That you arrive on time and that you work well with customers and whatnot. So if you're applying to a learning institution, you definitely want to highlight how much you enjoy learning, but then also what you plan on, what you enjoy, what you would be interested in studying while in college, and what you hope to do afterwards. So the essay could be an opportunity where you can share more about your interest in your major. There is also the activity section, and they may also ask you in the application directly, like what major you plan to pursue and why. So you want to look at your whole application and kind of think where you would want to share that a bit more.
And just so everybody knows, the Q&A is going to be captured, and we can share it with everybody in a week from now. The video recording of this will be on the website. The Q&A we can email to everyone after the fact. I think Jay is going to come in and confirm that now, as we're unfortunately coming near the end of this, everyone. Such great questions. We've done this 3 times now. Best Q&A group yet.
Definitely. Ooh, I was like, whirlwind here.
I am super glad to hear that, and it is correct. Yes. So the chat is going to be, or the Q&A is going to be a transcript available to our 3 presenters here. We are super glad that we've been able to have all 3 of you here. Thank you so much for all of that. I know this has been super insightful for a lot of people here. Also, the recording will be available to everyone at strivescan.com/WACAC. And for those of you who are watching live, when you close this out, we at StriveScan will have a short 4-question survey that we would just love your feedback on. But we do have to end this session now. So I hope you all have a wonderful and great evening. Bye now.